November 2016, and our planet is facing challenges, including climate change, toxins in the water we drink and the air we breathe, and people living in poverty and hunger. We consume the Earth's resources faster than the Earth has a chance to replenish them. We go to war over oil, and now we even inflict violence on each other over the placement of a pipeline carrying what was once called black gold. Just recently, our planet crossed over a relatively scary threshold in atmospheric CO2 at 400 parts per million. Who's going to save the day? Is it our next president? I don't think so. Could it be Elon Musk? I think he's really cool, but he's already moved on from this planet and he's focusing on Mars. Could it be Sir Richard Branson, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? Albert Einstein once said, "Problems cannot be solved by the same mindset that created them." JFK said, "The problems of the world cannot possibly be solved by the skeptics or cynics whose horizons are limited by the obvious realities. We need people who can dream of things that never were." Do you know who I believe the heroes will be who will systematically solve all these challenges? Gamers. Well, gamers in something amazing called graphene. Graphene is known as the game-changing material of the 21st century, and I'll tell you way more about that later. Did you know that humanity plays 3 billion hours of video games every week? Have any of you read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell? How many hours did it take for someone to reach a level of mastery at something? 10,000 hours. Did you know that our kids play 10,000 hours of video games before they reach the age of 21? This means that we're raising a generation of video game masters, and yet 89% of the video games kids are currently playing contain elements of violence. Yes, violence, which is why I started this whole thing in the first place. You see, 89% of our kids' childhood, or 8,900 hours of their playtime, is spent ingesting violence, and that makes me really sad. While studying human development and family studies at Cornell, I learned that we have mirror neurons that actually simulate the experiences we see in movies as if we experienced them ourselves. This means that we're simulating violence in the bedrooms and living rooms of many of the households in this country. And that to me is incredibly shocking. Aristotle said that we are what we repeatedly do. Right now, our kids are repeatedly killing people in games like Doom, Call of Duty, and Dead Space. What if our kids repeatedly innovated with graphene instead of spending time in the virtual killing fields? To help you understand a little bit more where I'm coming from, I'll share a few memories from my earlier years. It was Mother's Day, 1979. I was 6, and I was sitting next to my 4-year-old brother in the back seat of a black Mustang. My mom and stepfather were having an argument, which wasn't rare. And then all of a sudden, my stepfather started driving really erratically from left to right over and over again. And then my mom screamed, "Stop the car, stop the car." And when he did, she got out and started running away. Then he got out and started chasing after her. From the back seat of a black Mustang, my brother and I watched as my mom got beaten up by my first stepfather. The next thing I remember was being fed butter-flavored rolled gold pretzels by a stranger who took us in and let my mom call the police and file a report. Shortly thereafter, I remember the conversations with my extended family. Yeah, we sent Uncle Sal to your house to remove all the guns, just in case things escalated. Escalated? Guns? I was 6 years old. What does that mean? My teenage years also had their fair share of violence. Only this time I was the one who got beaten up, both at home and after school. The only place that felt safe to me was the school building itself. In fact, sometimes the bullying got so bad I actually needed to take the bus, the short bus, to and from school. You know, the short bus everyone makes fun of? I rode in that a lot. Now, do you understand why I can't comprehend why people would package violence and put it into a nice plastic package and put it into our living rooms? I just don't get that. You might say that my earlier years resembled a violent video game. Fast forward to December 14th, 2012, the day of the shootings at the Sandy Hook Elementary School. I was beside myself with sadness. The school building was my sanctuary. So when I learned that someone entered a school building and killed many 5- and 6-year-olds, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I spent 2 months in a very deep sadness, until one day, during my daily meditation, I saw a vision. I saw kids lining up to attend uplifting events, carrying nothing but a violent video game as their ticket price to a whole new life. The next day, I saw a vision of the AIDS quilt. And then something clicked. We're going to inspire kids to trade in violent video games, and we're going to repurpose those video games into art. 11 months and a day after the shootings at the Sandy Hook Elementary School, the Game Changer movement had its first live event. We were endorsed and sponsored by the Ithaca Police Department. Lily Ye, a globally renowned community artist, came to support and shape our vision of peace through art. Over 60 people came together to make a heart. And that is literally when my heart started coming back together. Over the next 12 months, we created what we like to call conversation pieces, spelled P-E-A-C-E. Until one day, something happened. We were making a conversation piece. We had a great conversation. And then when we began to make the piece, 2 boys remained off to the side. I took them aside and I said, "Why aren't you participating?" And one boy looked me right in the eyes and he said, "Erik, violent video games saved my life." I was a little taken aback. I asked him to explain further what he meant by that. And he said, "Erik, when I come home from school, my mom is mentally ill and my dad is always stoned, and the only people who know I exist are the people I game with every day." I thought to myself, this sounds a lot like what I experienced when I was growing up. I came home from that program and cried my eyes out. What's the world coming to when someone can actually tell me that violent video games saved their life? This was the game-changing moment for the Game Changer movement. I realized that if I was going to ask kids to change their game and trade in a violent video game, I needed to give them something amazing in their place. So from that game-changing moment on, I embarked on a search for what that amazing something could be. The good news is, my search came to an end in a very unlikely place. When I found myself sick in bed for 8 days straight, I couldn't speak much, so I did what any of you would do. I binged on YouTube videos and TED Talks. And the first video I saw was something called Billions and Change. It was amazing. A man named Manoj, who brought 5-hour energy into the world, wanted to change the world with all the money he never thought he would have, and he knew that he did not need. A third of the way into this movie, they mentioned something called graphene. And although I was very sick, I heard something click in my very stuffy head. We are going to get graphene instead of guns into the hearts and minds of our youth. When I regained my health, I embarked on the vision of developing the Game Changer platform. This replaces the sense of significance and community that kids are finding playing violent video games. This platform will introduce gamers to real-world, real-time scenarios that will actually make a difference in the world. Once I set this intention into motion, you would not believe what showed up. Through the support and generosity of my game-changing counterpart, Carol. Hi, Carol. I was able to travel to Europe for 3 different times. It was the first 3 times I'd ever been to Europe. And I was able to meet people who were involved in art with graphene and science with graphene. I was even asked to give a presentation in Manchester in the UK where graphene was actually discovered. So what is graphene? It's carbon. It's a 1-atom thick carbon arranged in a honeycomb pattern. In 2004, 2 scientists out of Manchester isolated graphene using Scotch tape and graphite. In 2010, they were given the Nobel Prize in Physics. So obviously, the world thinks that graphene is pretty significant if they're willing to give such an award to 2 scientists with basically a roll of Scotch tape and some number 2 pencils. Graphene is a great conductor of electricity. It's amazing at heat transfer. And it's pound for pound stronger than diamonds, well, harder than diamonds and stronger than steel. And it's flexible and mostly transparent. Graphene has the potential to disrupt every industry it touches, and it's going to solve many of the Earth's challenges, including energy, clean water, poverty, and hunger. Fortunately, there are initiatives, including something called the Carbon X Prize, that are challenging the world to repurpose the carbon we find in our smokestacks into things like diamonds and graphene products. And the sponsors are putting $20 million on the line for this to happen. Now do you get why I go gaga over graphene? Here's the challenge, or as the folks at TED like to say, the idea worth spreading. Many industry experts say that it will take at least 10 years for graphene solutions to make a meaningful impact on this planet. And I'm like, come on now. We've got 3 billion hours to work with. So if you take 3 billion hours and it takes 10,000 hours to get to mastery, we're actually creating the potential of 300,000 masters, like Elon Musk, Lady Gaga, Mother Teresa, and the Beatles, every week. The Game Changer platform will generate a multitude of solutions as the world transforms carbon from the world's supervillain into the world's superhero in what we like to call Super G. Until now, only people with advanced degrees in engineering or severe TED Talk addiction know about graphene, which means that we have a human resources dilemma when it comes to transforming carbon from villain into Super G. The gaming environment provides the person power, or what we like to call the G-force, necessary to make Super G a household name. This is the new math. It's the math of what we like to call game sourcing exponentials. There's a new line of video games that are doing this math and winning. There's a game called Malaria Spot. It's a first-person shooter game, but instead of shooting people or zombies, you shoot malaria cells, and you actually help providers in developing nations diagnose malaria in real patients. There's a game called Fold It that teaches gamers how to fold proteins. In fact, Fold It helps solve a 15-year-old mystery in HIV research in 15 days. The best things about that is one of the world's best protein folders was an 11-year-old out of Texas. There's a game called Eterna that literally synthesizes the RNA molecules that the gamers create. These are the things you can learn about when you're sick in bed for 8 days straight. So who are the gamers? Are the gamers molecular biologists? No, and that's the point. The game space attracts people from diverse perspectives and backgrounds, and we learn the most, and we literally are the most creative when we're at play. Imagine if our playtime can make a contribution to humanity instead of teaching us how to kill. So how are we doing this? We're hosting a series of hack days where we're going to invite people who code to make the Game Changer platform with us. Have you ever been to a hack day? I've been to a few. It's amazing what happens when coders come together to create over a weekend. This is what real community and significance is. What are we going to do? We will start by introducing graphene as a construction material in games that people are already playing. In fact, if I were playing Minecraft, I would totally choose a Super G sword instead of a diamond sword every day of the week. We will 3D print the most promising solutions from the game space using graphene filament. We like to say that we're realifying the game world and gamifying the real world. We are crowdsourcing and crowdfunding a global virtual laboratory so that gamers can develop and then apply their skills in a way that will truly make a difference in the world. The stage is set. We're going to show the world that we can game source graphene solutions together. And it will take way less than 10 years as we redirect our gaming time from violence and destruction to building community and creation. So why will youth play this game instead of the more popular games on the market? Because they helped us make it. And being part of creation is one way of feeling more significant. Our youth will know just how significant they are right now. We're going to meet kids exactly where they are, in the game world. And they will absolutely amaze us. So when is all this going to happen? It's actually already happening. Now we need your help in growing a community of youth who are willing to change their game and join our movement. So please find us at GameChangerMovement.com. As we do this, we create a genuine sense of belonging and significance so that no child will ever tell me again that violent video games saved their life. There are 3 billion hours up for grabs every week. Imagine what the world will look like when we change our game together. Thank you very much.